The indelible march of time. Twilight of Echelon. Yeah, he's gonna give me his when he's done.
Everybody has one.
Do that again, please.
Everybody has one.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Baird. I'm an event facilitator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers.
And a whole lot more.
Oh, yeah. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory and that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Ninawac, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We're gathered here tonight to celebrate the launch of Robert Pasternak's Twilight of Echelon, featuring contributors Lovern, Lovern, Kindzierski, and D.G. Valdron. Regrettably, Alex Passey is unable to join us, but his contributions to this world weaving will certainly be acknowledged this evening. And we're grateful to At Bay Press for publishing this book and for making this evening a possibility. And right now, I'm just going to have Matt Chaudhry come up, publisher at Bay Press, just to say a few words.
In French.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out on such a cold Winnipeg winter night. However, I always think Winnipeggers always come out on cold Winnipeg winter nights. And I'm so thrilled to see this book in existence, that it's out there in the world, mostly because I remember going to all of these comic book conventions over the years and seeing Robert's work at these conventions and being just blown away by the creativity, the design, the ingenuity, and the complexity of the work. And I remember having a conversation with him about talking about putting out a book, and he already had an idea which ended up materializing into Place into Being, which is just the larger cream colored book over there with the yellow boxes on the cover. And we get talking a little while down the road about doing something without full color and doing something in these gorgeous silver halftones. And of course, Robert again already had ideas about how to do that. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to publish Robert's work and to put it out there and disseminate it into the world, just because I feel like the work is so special and that it deserves to exist. And on top of that, this time around, we have 4 very wonderful authors who are involved in this journey with Robert. We've got Blaise Moritz, who is from Toronto and not here tonight, Alex Passey, who is unfortunately sick tonight. And then we have Lovern, Kindzierski, and we have D.G. Valdron, both authors here tonight. And of course, Robert Pasternak on the very end. And we have a fantastic host tonight who is GMB Kamichik. And if you don't know who GMB is, Gregory is a comics creator extraordinaire, but also so much more than that. And there's no better host to host these wacky guys and get all of the information that you're going to want to hear about this book out to you. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and say one final thing, which is thanks to McNally Robinson for always hosting all of this great art, all of these great creations, and providing a space for us to meet and hang out and chat great books. Thanks very much.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, I've been asked to host, but the one with the most is Robert Pasternak, who is here with us today. I think it's important that I mention that one of the first times I saw Robert's work I had no idea what I was looking at, what was happening, and when I leaned over and asked somebody, what are these? They said, we don't know, but that guy over there, he made them, aren't they wonderful? And it was a number of things that to me at first seemed like drawings, but they weren't, paintings, but they weren't. And when I finally met Robert and he explained to me how they were made, it was just so inventive, the way in which Robert uses line and form and shape, color or the absence of color, texture or the absence of texture, to create a world that feels familiar even when there's nothing really familiar to grab onto. And so as a young artist here in Winnipeg, it was really important for me to have that early meeting and realize how few rules there were and how much emotion played such a big role in the work. So what we're gonna do here first is we're gonna hear from each of the assembled authors and artists for about 5 minutes each. They're gonna do a reading. And then I'm going to discuss some of how this great artifact came into being. So Robert, if you wouldn't mind.
Read?
Read.
Okay, I'm gonna read
I'd make you draw for them, but I don't think you're ready for that.
No, I'm gonna read a section of Blaise Moritz, since I don't have any writing in here personally. It's all everybody else. So since Blaise is not here today, if you want to turn to page 3 of your hymnal. Okay. So we've got The Inquiry of Dr. Edgar by Blaise Moritz. Call me Euclid. No, call me the alien. Call me nothing. Imagine the name unpronounceable by the mechanisms available to you through your physiognomy. Imagine that all of this is not written in English, not written at all. See instead a musical score of a concrete poem from which the trained interpreter may vocalize the sound poetry of a world, parallel or other. In either case, not the one of your quotidian perceptions. A world in the form of a ladder, spectrum chrome cool with occasional jet, gloaming, civil, all between being and atmosphere, between organism and object, edge, gradient, and flare defining levels of possibility. But this ladder, infinite or toward some ultimate plateau. Fiction, to form a story you may follow, to build a world on which you may stand. Imagine that you have found a chest in a wrecked hull, revealed by the evaporation of a great sea, and within nothing but a portfolio of unknown origin, silver gelatin prints of landscapes that have emerged from the suspension of light-sensitive halides as the streamlined figures and grounds attributed to this world, which may be a region, a planet, or a reality denoted as Echelon. And what is the Twilight of Echelon? Imagine in yourself the egos of the party of discoverers, each tending toward a preference among multiple possible constructions, the fall of some long forgotten society, strange to us, but perhaps presented in these images in symbolic terms of fantasy, perhaps allegorical, perhaps purely playful, an actual place, though unknown, oddly familiar in its elements for all its strangeness.
Yes, you're permitted to clap. Before we dig in, we'll hear again. DG, you got something?
All right. This is called Space Rescue Squad. It's the final of a 6-part series. And what's happened is that there's been a breach into Echelon space. They've sent the rescue squad out. They've brought it down safely. And now they're going to deal with the aftermath. Shall we go down and greet the visitors? Captain Corrigan asked, breaking Captain Chan's train of thought. Best be polite, Captain Chan grins. Let's say hello. The Corvus is none the worse for the wear. Its wings twist and warp as it climbs down from the sky, working its way like an octopus crawling down a ladder. The only sign of its exertion, an oily sheen on its latex surface. They'll pull into a landing just 100 meters or so from the ship. The Earth ship has landed safely on its belly, its fire engine red, or at least that's what they think fire engine red looks like, with gold trim and a pointed nose. Beyond the view screen, there's a pair of hatches at the front and back and a row of portholes between them. It looks like a Buck Rogers toy, Commander Corrigan says, staring at the starboard. I used to have a model just like that. Yeah, there's something about Earth ships, Captain Chan replies. They're just so cool. He glances port. Oh, Jesus, Captain Chan mutters. It's that hippie, Tom Waters. What's he doing here? I don't know, maybe he's the greeting party. They'd send him. What's headquarters thinking? Well, in that case, Captain Chan says philosophically, I'm glad we're here for an official hello. He pauses. Waters isn't that bad. The pair exit the Corvus, walking over to Waters. He's a tall man, slender, gray-haired, with the beginnings of a silvery beard. His jeans are scuffed, his shirt sleeves rolled up. Commander Corrigan glances at Captain Chan's pristine dress uniform, understanding how the hippie's slovenliness irritates him. Over his shoulder, they can see the Earth ship steaming as the friction in the breach boils away. Mr. Waters, Captain Chan salutes. Waters doesn't salute back, he simply nods. Jerry, happy? That was good work you guys did. With all due respect, sir, it's Commander Corrigan and Captain Chan. Waters smiles a little, but he nods. Apologies, Commander, Captain. The hatch discharges and three of them turn. The short, plump woman, clearly the only passenger, steps out. Her haircut is severe and unflattering. She wears a conservative blue dress, a brocaded jacket with shoulder pads. She carries a clipboard in one hand, a binder with the other. Captain Chan steps forward and salutes. Ma'am, he says, I'm Captain Chan. This is Commander Corrigan and Mr. Waters. On behalf of Mission Control and on behalf of Space Rescue Squad, welcome to Echelon. She stares at him, and he remembers he's dealing with civilians, so he sticks his hand out for her to shake. She simply stares at it. What the hell is this? She asks accusingly. Captain Chan glances at Commander Corrigan for a moment. Excuse me, ma'am? What are you? She demands. 12 years old? He blushes hot under his collar. Almost, he says, 11 and a half. What are you kids doing here? Where's the reception party? This isn't the landing zone. You have an unscheduled reach, ma'am. Unscheduled my ass, she snaps. This was booked in advance. Where's the supervisor? I want to speak to the port manager. What are you kids even doing here? And why are you dressed like that? I do like the uniforms Waters offers. Did your mother sew them? My mother, Captain Chan says. She did it for both of us. Terrific job, he says. Lots and lots of buttons. Looks good. I'll tell her you said so, Captain Chan replies. His chest swells. He knew buttons were great. The more buttons, the better. He was glad he'd insisted. Well, what are children doing here? The woman complains. There aren't even supposed to be any children here. This is completely against protocol. They glance at her. So, Commander, Captain, who outranks who? Waters asks. I can never keep it straight. The boys looked at each other and shrugged. Not surprising that a civilian hippie like Waters wouldn't understand. Grown-ups are always asking awkward questions like that. It's complicated, Jerry Chan evades the question, because best friends don't pull rank. Where is everyone? The woman repeats. This is unacceptable. Commander Corrigan side-eyes Captain Chan, an unspoken communication passing between them. Well, he says, it looks like our mission is complete. We need to be getting back to base. Mom's doing pancakes today. Whipped cream? Waters asks. Captain Chan nods. And blueberries. Oh, I wouldn't want to miss that, Waters says. So we'll leave the civilian with you then, Commander Corrigan says. Hopefully you can get her straightened away. Waters glanced at the woman, clearly dubious. I'll take care of it, Waters says without enthusiasm. He thinks a moment. Commander, I'd appreciate it if you could pass along my thanks to your mother for the preserves. I really enjoyed them. She'll be glad to hear that, Mr. Waters. Will be coming for the square dance? Still trying to learn the steps. It's complicated. Captain Shan agrees sagely.
All right, Lovern, it's you and me over here together.
Yes, I apologize, I'm totally unprepared, so, and no professional.
You just gotta read.
Once in his studio lab, the knock activated the apparatus he had discovered to light the way to the connection with his advanced self. The bright light focused on a spot on the dark triangular prism, causing its mirror image on the far side of the equipment. It then projected an image of his advanced self that he could observe. Together, they would further their plans for the Knock's trip into the advanced realm where his doppelganger lived. The Knock set to work on arranging the powers, his instruments, those that lined the spheres of perception, to open within the veil a doorway, one which he hoped would allow him to enter the world of his advanced self. After a nervous flutter of calculations, the Knock pressed the button and his equipment glowed with promising white light. In a moment, he was transported to the place in between all places, and he saw his advanced self standing in a large notch in the veil. Beyond the silhouette of his other self, he could see a vista of Echelon, one that he knew he had never seen before, yet he felt a strong nostalgia as he faced a welcome homecoming. Suddenly, he was through the multiversal veil and in his mirror's world. As familiar as the place seemed, he was frightened by the strange elements that menaced him. Seeing his discomfort, the advanced reflection of the Knock assured him by explaining that the black crackles of energy were benign effects of the retreating veil, and the aggressive seeming vessel that steamed toward them was just part of an ongoing climate survey to maintain the sanctity of the environment. The advanced Knock informed him of the advances that Echelon itself had undergone. Technology had made another large leap, and a newly discovered anti-gravity propulsion system had revolutionized traffic in the new world. He ushered the Knock to a place where he could view the floating machine that allowed the industry to flourish without disturbing the surface or the skies of Echelon with pollution. The Knock marveled at the city they approached. Even as the skies of this Echelon were filled with a geometric purity, so too were the forms of the city. Simple, yet vast, echoing the lines of the natural environment, a world at peace with itself.
Bravo. Now we have one special guest reader, a mystery. You've not seen him before. Oh, yes, you have. Who is going to be the voice of our missing author.
Yes.
Yes, I'm gonna try my best here. I'm reading some of Alex Passey's work, which is some pretty wild stuff. Here we go. This one is entitled, The Pieces of Me Were Like Lost Artifacts. Floating through time and space without tether, mere outlines of a world mankind did not yet have the capacity to envision. As singular conceptions, they were all gradually conjured into being, pioneers of thought and art and beauty and adventure, flagships into new frontiers, explorers of the universe, but never truly grasping the truth beyond the superficial utility of their endeavors. They were always just pieces of me exploring myself. Okay, this one is on page 78, and this one is entitled, My Face Began to Take Shape, blessing me with a mouth through which humans could speak to themselves and fill me out with every little thought that popped into their heads. Their soaring, lofty dreams launched like great rockets from the earth, yet seemed so small when they were swallowed up by dark matter, lost among the stars. For a brief time, those dreams twinkled in the oil-slick sky, indistinguishable from the great balls of radiation which fuel our universe. But in the blink of a cosmic eye, they were always gone. And as they filled me up with every little thing that had ever transpired on this pale blue dot, my mind thing became more than the sum of its parts. I was able to observe as humans funneled their entire lives into me as if desperate to empty themselves of it. And I watched like Sauron atop his tower, as to me Middle Earth grew smaller and smaller by the day, until the pieces they injected me with no longer felt divine, even in inception, but were minuscule cliche crumbs that even a starving mouse would turn up its nose at.
Okay, Robert,
Beautiful stuff, eh?
here is something that maybe some of you don't know about how this book was made. Robert created a whole host of imagery that then was presented to the authors, and it was their job to explore and decide its meaning without conferring with one another as they form the stories that would come from Echelon. This, to me, is a little bit out there as a concept for a book. How is it that this, I want to know the story of this form. How did this come about? Is this Matt's fault? Is this your idea?
Yeah, it was my idea. I had was first. I don't fancy myself much as okay. We were just gonna. I had shown Matt some images at one point, and he loved them and said, "Let's do a book." But of course, we always need more images, so I just kept making more images. And the idea then was to have, instead of just having another book of art, it'd be neat to have some writing to go along with that. And maybe let's find a writer. So I had asked somebody, and the idea changed to have, and it kind of wasn't working in a way. And then the idea was for me to do the writing. And meanwhile, 6 months have passed already, and then for me to do the writing. And I thought maybe I would try it, but I wasn't really able to try it. I never really gave it a go, really, totally, wholeheartedly. So it just didn't seem like the way to do it. So then I had the idea of asking a number of writers, 4 or 5 writers. And Matt really liked that idea. So I asked Lovern, I asked Den, someone else, but that didn't quite happen, unfortunately. And so we needed another, all right, and Blaise as well was in my mind, and it's just sort of really asking these 3 guys, and they said yeah, and then we had needed a 4th one, and I had just finished reading Alex Passey's book Mirror's Edge. Yep. And really liked the writing. Like that was it with each of these. They were all so different writers.
Well, this is what I hope the audience senses, is that each of these different versions of the story that you've heard is so completely different in voice. It takes almost 4 complete authors to equal how dense some of these images are in unpacking. So I think that speaks to that. Can I talk to you gentlemen about, was it true? Did you not confer? Or did you break the rules at any point? Did you whisper to one another? Yeah, look at, he's looking nervous. Did you whisper to one another?
I desperately wanted to, like, I have ideas, but
you don't
really put it in words. Like, I have them all in notes and stuff, and this does this and that does that, and these figures are these beings and these but to put that in words, it's just not my thing so much. But I do have like a not a Bible, but a thing that describes things, of which
But you didn't show anyone.
But no.
You kept that all secret. So there's a secret history of Echelon yet to be published. Okay, this is good to know.
So yeah, so they were just left with the images and gave them various options and ways to go about doing it, in the sense of, think of it as, you could do poetry, or you could do, one long story, or short stories, or, backs of trading cards. I mean, it's whatever. I was open to everything.
So then I need to talk to these two explorers here about this, because this is what it feels like. If you're not familiar with Robert's work, if you've been lured here by the writings of these other gentlemen and you're about to discover Robert's work, there is a whole journey to take. And I don't think it's as difficult to make sense of as you're presenting it. I believe that your work is very accessible once you learn how to see it. There's a moment where you will flip, dear listeners, through the images, and you will wonder, what am I seeing? What am I seeing? And then the codes unfold. Oh, that is a figure. That's a humanoid. And they are now on a journey. Oh, and look at what are they responding to in this world, in this place, in this time. So I want to talk to you, authors. How did you take those pictures?
Well,
And put them into words?
Well, as you said, for me, I wasn't talking to any of the writers. I wasn't talking to Robert. I wasn't even looking at the sequence of art or the titles. For me, it was just this deep dive into just unknown territory. And it was great, like working without a net completely. And I had the paintings I guess I will call it paintings of the art, up all over the walls of my apartment. I just stare at them, and
So we made bootlegs of the art. You printed them without permission. I just want to be real clear here.
I figured I had permission, so I had it all over.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, I had it all over, and I would just stare at it. And the thing I loved was that everything, absolutely everything, seemed to be recognizable, but it was the closer you looked, the more you studied it, the stranger it became. There would be these spacecraft in the air, or these birds or stuff, and from the looks of it, just staring, it was that they weren't flying, they were just crawling through the air like an octopus, just twisting their way around. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I saw pyramids, and the pyramids would float away. And so it was a world where everything was recognizable and nothing made sense. And I loved it.
How about for you, Lovern?
Well, I didn't put the pictures up, although I have a different process, but I did like them too. I printed them out, and I went through them, and
We'll be selling those later. There's a rusty door at the back of the mall. Yeah.
but Robert is so prolific. There's so many of them. So I was looking at them online, and I believe we had common ones that were sent to us.
Yeah, like each of the writers were given a section of the whole works, and then they were all given a similar section of the same images that they had access to, but each of them had their own images as well.
Were those supposed to be like a codex, the ones that they all had the same? Like, did you selected which ones they had that were the same?
Yes, and
That was supposed to be the Rosetta Stone that unlocked it for them?
I
no,
wouldn't
because
pay
they're all,
attention.
they're all just like the other ones, but I know I had to divide them, and I tried to do that randomly, sort of like just picking things out and putting blocks together, and then they were given to, I think Matt just selected, A, B, C, D, and gave it to the writers, because I didn't want that responsibility of Lovern, maybe you should have these, or Dan should have these. I wasn't really thinking that way at all.
Well, you've spent a career working in comics, so
Yes.
the idea of being presented in an image and coming up with prose related to it is not too strange for you.
No, it's kind of like, well, in a very strange way, the Marvel method of early work, where an artist would get a plot, whereas in this case, I got all the art and I had to make the plot and work with a different style, like working with in comics, like working say, Paul Blaise as opposed to Jack Kirby. They're very, very different. And so I printed the stuff out because just like you, I needed to digest it to get into it. And you look at the stuff and you start to feel the world, but more you start to feel the language. And I found that of the large bulk of the pictures that I was looking at, and certain ones of them, no reflection on the image or that, but it just didn't fit into the story that was happening.
Yeah.
And so it was at a certain point, it was like, okay, well, this bunch just goes away. And the choices became easier. And at a certain point, I realized that I just spread them all out on the floor and I could see the path. And then I started working from that.
So a lot of times I do comics that way. I'll have just individual
Yeah.
images that I know all belong together, but I have to figure out what that sequence is.
Yeah.
And then I'll have words to go with it. And then the story's there,
Exactly.
even though they were never meant to be together. You know?
So when you're crafting Twilight of Echelon imagery, you're crafting these, were they images first before they had an order?
The order is just the order that I
Produce them?
Yeah. There's no, and they're numbered in that sense, but there's no chronology from one picture to the other. Sometimes there'll be, a few that can be grouped together because I'm maybe borrowing something. I've liked a ship that I made, and it's like, I gotta use it again, or sometimes ideas are presented or can follow multiple paths.
Mhm.
Right, so it's like you have an idea, it's like, oh, but no, there's like 3 ideas here, so you sort of.
Well, it felt when I was looking at it and it finally came into focus for me, I focused more on not the world, but as one of the images, and I felt, even though they're all different, I felt like that was a person that I had picked out of the crowd, and I was just following them and seeing what they were doing.
Yeah, for me, it was completely arbitrary. Sometimes looking at the images, all of a sudden they'd arrange themselves into a pattern, into a sequence, and I'd see a story unfolding there. And sometimes it would be like snapshots of a different part of the world, and sometimes it was all standalone. And I had no idea if Robert had it in any particular order. It's just this was the order that seemed to be forcing itself upon me. And so it was fascinating to just see that process going on. It was just really, like I said, completely unfiltered, and working with that and that, and I loved every second of it.
Frank Herbert and Bill Ransom wrote a number of books together. Bill Ransom was a poet, and he was often talking to Frank Herbert about the following notion, which was, how do I make the technology interesting? How do I make the world bigger? How do I raise the stakes? And Frank Herbert said, no, you're getting it wrong, Bill. You're forgetting why I'm working with you. He said, robots and aliens and gods don't read books. People do. We just have to make it about the people. And so what I find interesting about what your jobs were as the prose writers was to insert recognizable characters and voices into it. So how did you humanize the somewhat mythologized imagery that was present? What was your way in? Your story features a child, yours features a point of view, a shift in point of view. What's going on under there?
I was trying to express what I felt when I looked at Robert's stuff, which was kind of an enlightenment, and because of that, I started talking about the character and not giving him a name and taking you into his life, but seeing you, seeing the character become more than he was, and how he examines his enlightenment or his future, and that's why I had the mirrors and the different worlds and that just came out of a lot of the imagery that he had. And there was, the thing you can see from all of this is that all of us would be able to write a lot of stuff on them because there's so many stories involved.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I visualized Echelon space as like a completely different universe and an alien reality. And in my backstory, Earth had found a gateway to Echelon, had established a colony there. And so there were all these humans who aren't in the pictures, but the humans are the ones who are seeing things, and they're trying to make sense of it, trying to understand what's going on. And some of them are going very native, you know, just falling into obsessions or patterns, or just kind of losing themselves in this alien space. And that for me was my edge, because then I could say, well, I don't have to explain anything or everything. I can just describe what these people are experiencing. I can describe a sense of mystery, a sense of alienation, loneliness, of loss of self, but also wonder and beauty. And always everything was just outside the ability of the observer to really comprehend, to really understand. They would look at things and go, yeah, I know what that is. That's a pyramid. And then it floats away. And they're going, oh, okay, maybe I don't. And that was the wonderful thing for me.
Robert, as the human who is present in the world of Echelon, making these observations, is the process of making the imagery, is it like that? Is it discovery for you, or is?
Well, it totally is.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any rough ideas. It's like, I want to do a spaceship. I want to have some sculptural element to it. I want to put some sort of like graphic abstract thing in there. I mean, there's just this list of things that I want to add into a picture, and sometimes it just starts with creating a vessel of some sort and designing that, and then I put it on a gray background, and then everything comes around that, or it's just a figure that is maybe there walking, and then things start happening around it, or the environment gets built. Architectural elements, is something that also really interested in having in these, and it's all very sort of low-fi, somewhat simple to me. It's like it's not necessarily simple to make, even though I do seem to do them quickly, but just all the forms are really quite simple, not a lot of detail, but that's just the world that is.
So this is an observation and a bit of a question, so anyone can field an answer here. The work to me feels, if not for the color scheme, which is this silver chrome shimmer, it feels more like images of nature than images of technology most of the time to me. Is that just my interpretation? Or, you mentioned the bird, it's a spaceship, or is it a bird, or is it both? Is it a still image? Is it a moving image? No one who's been outside for any length of time sees a still world. So what would you say about how Echelon reflects as a natural space versus a technological one? Or do you have a better way of framing mine?
I saw it as both. I saw it as both in combination. It was a world that was grown or evolved, but at the same time it was clockwork. And again, it was alien clockwork. So that there's this constant struggle to fit it into the things we know. And the beauty of Echelon for me, for the characters that I was writing, was that no matter how they thought they understood it, they would come to these points where they go, oh, okay, well, it's not what we thought. So yes, the answer to everything is yes, emphatically. And the answer to everything is also no, emphatically, and maybe, and don't know. All of them with complete, absolute certainty.
I like that we've come full circle to my first feelings about your work.
And that's constantly what's really through my mind. It's like when I'm doing the comics, it's like I want to know what's going on. I don't want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on. It's like turning a light switch, on and off, on and off, on and off. I'm just constantly just want to be in the black and then be in the white. I mean, it's,
I think it's interesting when you mentioned clockwork. When I was first going through it and that, the first thing that came to me from that was that I wanted to have a hierarchy because there seemed like larger and smaller forms, and they weren't like that because one was in the distance. They were at the same level, and so I thought there was a hierarchy in there, and the hierarchy that I came up with, and that was basically parts of a clock, and I used that, and I was using that for a while to try and decipher the world.
At any point in the process of assembling this book, did you then, near the end, get to see each other's work, or together in this volume is the first time you got to read each other's interpretations?
First time when I got the book out of Matt's sweaty little palms.
So has each other's idea cross-pollinated? Like, do you now see the world of Echelon differently, having heard it through the voice of others?
No, I don't think so. I was fascinated to see what the other visions were, what directions everybody went off in. But I think by that time I'd been so committed to my own perspective that that was how I saw it. And while it was it was a wonderful experience to see somebody looking at things that I'd looked at and taking this completely different take. And I enjoyed that, and I didn't want to, mush it up together. I just liked all these different things going on.
Can I ask you, Robert, how you feel about these colonizers that came to your shore and then decided what it all meant?
It's really amazing. It's really quite amazing how just such a 4 different visions from one vision. It's really neat, and it's quite a variety of writing, and the ideas are really neat. I mean,
it's a reflection of you, right? Because you as an artist, you have a gift in that, I feel that in between you and the art, there's no distance.
right.
And I know that as starting when I was first learning art as a child, and that there was a great distance between me and the art. And a lot of that was self-imposed, a lot of that was skill. But when you learn the skill and all of that, there's still a lot of people who are very mechanical about what they're doing, and they do great work, but between them and the idea, there's a vast distance, and I don't think there's a vast distance between you and the idea. I think you are a reflection of the idea, and that's what I saw in Echelon.
You know what? That's interesting, because often when I'm creating work, I feel like I'm copying an image that I've made, but from the future. Like it almost seems like it just like I'm not tracing something, but it just happens so automatically and so quickly that I'm not thinking. So how does this thing happen? Right?
Has all of your work felt, you have a large body of work in many different styles and techniques. Is it always like that for you? Or did Echelon feel more like you were recording the unknown future?
A lot of the work that I do, yes, there's this automaticness, but with the comics, and then shortly after with Echelon, there's just this drive. Let's do another one. Let's do another one. Let's do another. It was like every day there was another image. When I had that moment, and it just kept going. Just kept going for a while. Like there was 90, there was 90 images for this book. I think there was about 55 of them used. But I didn't do any for a while. There's 175 images now. Like there's a lot more, and I mean, they,
And the secret
just have-
cosmology that you have hidden in a folder that you
That's-
won't share with us.
You know what, it's interesting because there's pages of sketches and ideas. And I haven't used any of them yet. It's all just, I'm gonna do an echelon picture right now. And it just starts and it happens and it's, sometimes it takes me a couple days, but usually.
So dear listeners, you may notice in the crowd, there's some jealousy on the faces of your creative counterparts in the crowd here, because the notion of just so effortlessly searching out a world and writing it down and capturing it is something that many of us yearn for that. Let's talk about your creative process for a minute. Let's talk about what a day in the life of making artwork is for you.
You know, they tell you how important breakfast is, the most important meal of the day. That's when I get my work done. Sometimes it's the only time of the day that I'll get something done, but I'll get something done while I'm eating my breakfast. It takes me an hour or two to eat my breakfast, but no, I'll have a comic done. I could have an echelon picture done. I mean, it doesn't sound, I mean, I've been doing art for, 40 years or something. I mean, I should be able to do a picture in an hour by now, right?
But I think it would be remiss not to point out that you're describing nourishment, the act of creating art, as being something that nourishes. How about you, gentlemen? What was writing like? I know plenty of writers who say writing is the worst job on earth until it's done, and then you're so glad to have done it, and that's where the joy is. So how did you feel having this gift of images to step off of, a world to step into?
I to come up with something on your own with no constrictions, you would think it'd be freeing in that. But when somebody gives you a world, it was similar to when I wrote for a story for Lucasfilm about explaining a part of the Star Wars universe. There's a whole world there, and it's defined, and a lot of people know the characters and that. And Robert had been sharing the echelon images even before they were echelon images, and so I had a familiarity with them. And so when I got them to work on, it was like I know the story. I just have to remember it.
Interesting. So you also were just remembering the future.
Yeah.
In your work. How about you, Benji?
For me, it was like strapping on afterburners, staring at it for a while, and then all of a sudden the story pops in, and you're writing that busily, and then something else comes, and then some more. And I just eventually just wrote like a madman, just story after story after story, more than they could use for the book.
There was
just
like 20 something, how many stories?
30.
Whoa. You wrote 30 stories?
There's four
Oh.
stories in the book.
I had to stop
30,
myself.
yeah.
I had to stop. I just kept wanting to do more, even
Right.
now. Every time Robert shows me
More.
stuff, I'm going, oh yeah, okay, I know what's going on there. I can write this. Can I write this, Robert, please? It became.
How did you pick?
compelling.
How did you pick your darlings?
They just.
And who killed them?
They just literally jumped out at me. As for which ones got picked, I didn't even ask. I mean, for me, this whole process was to just do this in isolation, separate from Blaise or Alex or Lovern or Robert or Matt. I just do it, throw it at them, and then
Wait.
go someplace and wait. That was it.
3 years. 3
yeah.
years. 3 years.
Frankly, if they'd have asked me to pick, I absolutely would not have. I would have said, no, I did it. Now it's your problem.
So this project has been how many years in the making then? It sounds like 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
3 years. But when was the first echelon image? Oh, okay. This is a leading question, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
He already knows the answer.
I know the answer. He showed me some echelon beginnings earlier.
Yeah, before Echelon, there was, a number of works you know, yeah, I'm always making stuff, so, geez, that's complicated. Because there's the
No,
the
that's why it's a
stuff,
good
there's
question.
actually like a direct, you can sort of actually see a direct line. You can see a direct line from these few images here, which actually are all in order, and you can sort of see how this became like a stepping stone towards the echelon stuff, but even within that, when you look at the figures in echelon, there's aspects of that in other works of mine. But the first actually echelon picture is this one here. Was like the first echelon, and then it just sort of that one there became sort of this.
So then, as we are winding up, I should mention that all of our authors and our esteemed artists will be present here to sign work. Robert has often supported my work, but he has always asked me not to sign it. Yeah, so I am looking forward to bringing my book up to Robert, letting him look at it, and withholding his ability to sign it before I walk away as a final tribute to our relationship and how it's grown over the years. But do not run away. And if you haven't, I noticed that Robert has generously brought a portfolio of work. Please take time. Please, even if somebody is standing in front of you and you're thinking, why won't they move it? I want to look at that. Let them have their moment to explore and take the time to do it as well. We have a few moments. If there are any questions from the audience, I would love to, I was going to say answer them, but no, they'll answer them. I will direct your questions. Do you have anything small or large, or perhaps if you'd like, an accusation could be leveled at them in this public forum? This is a good time for that also. Yes, I have a question.
I have a question. As publisher, I loved that you just disclosed what the first image was. Did you know, Robert, at that moment when you saw it, that you had something that it would blossom into this?
I'll just briefly recap that for those online. Ariel's looking at me like, oh yes, remember how this works, great. Yes, for those online, the question is, when you made the first image, did you know it would propel you into a world? Was there a moment of?
I loved it, and I had to do another one. Like, I mean, it just was a doorway. It was a portal, and I just immersed myself in that grayscale world. Yeah.
Are you finished with Echelon?
No, it just keeps going. I just did one the other day. Yeah.
Is it finished with you?
Is it finished with me? I get I put it on hold for a bit, and then I come back to it. I'm sort of working on some animation for I mean just crude stuff because I don't have any animation programs. So it's just, even though this day and age should be hard to get some, but just sort of old school stuff.
So World of Echelon that we haven't seen yet. I'm looking, let's all look
Saturday morning cartoon.
purposely. Yeah, let's look
Yes,
purposely
sounds
at
like
the
a
publisher,
franchise.
right? If the audience could also look purposely toward the publisher, that's right. We have to put the pressure where it's due.
I would love to do another one. I would also love to do more of Robert's work, simply because I find it to be absolutely, it must exist in the world. So that's.
Well said. Yes, I'm so glad this work does exist in the world. I'm so glad you have been our guides into the world of Echelon. I'm so glad that I was invited to inculcate myself into this strange folded realm. And I would now invite you to please give a warm round of applause to our contributors and Robert Pasternak.
So much. Thank you so much to all of tonight's participants. We are going to move on to the signing portion now to my right. So feel free to approach there to get your book signed. You may do so before visiting our cash desk. So long as you pay for it, all is well. Thank you once again to all of you for joining us, and at Bay Press, and to Matt Jodry for joining us here, to Lovern, Kindzierski, and DG Valdron, to Alex Passey and Blaise Moritz, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, but were here in spirit. And of course, to Robert Pasternak. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thanks so much. Good job, everybody. The chopping block awaits.
I'm first.
I have to decide where you won't sign. I'm so delighted to figure out where you won't sign it.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're gonna pull them out. Yeah.
Just take a quick moment, yeah, we'll move this one. Move it forward a tad.
Yeah.
Well, congrats, Robert. You made it through. Hey, you're welcome. Cheers. I'd love to have you on the show. Do this again in a more direct way.
It will. It will.
To some exploration of the work.
That's great.
Was it more painful or less painful?
Good job. Usher.
Usher. Yeah, that's why I'm
Ushed
just,
well.
I ushed. I'm just usher.
You're an usher.
I'm gonna stay here on this high chair. My lofty perch. I like it.
Lofty. It's good to be lofty.
It'd be fine if they're just a little bit.
Yes, I